voted no on the big beautiful bill because it will significantly increase U.S. budget deficits in the near term, negatively impacting Americans through sustained inflation and high interest rates. CBO website estimates that Public Law 119-21 will result in a net increase in the unified budget deficit totaling $3.4 trillion over 2025 to 2034 period. This is the question, candidates. Would you have voted for the big beautiful bill, an increase in our national debt or deficit?
It'll be quick, no.
Yeah, I'll start with some numbers, right? America's $38 trillion in debt, $2 trillion deficit, and $1 trillion in interest a year. We're a broke nation, and it's failing, bad, very fast. And so we've got to fix it. To answer the question, yes, I would have voted for it, and here's why. Because it's the largest tax break in this nation. You had to get the economy spurring. With that came the economic juggernaut of the American economy, which we consume more than any other nation in the world, sitting at $27 trillion per year is what America consumes, which allowed President Trump to go to every single country that was taking advantage of us and to apply what he called reciprocal tariffs, not just tariffs, reciprocal. That means these countries were coming in and taking advantage of us, our products, our goods, our services, our taxpayers, our economy, this country, which caused it. He just announced just today $600 billion in revenue from the tariff that came into this country. It is an economic juggernaut. Because of Maduro and what happened in Venezuela, we've had the highest market right now. He knows what he's doing. I trust him. So the answer to that is absolutely, unequivocally, yes, I would have supported the one big beautiful bill. And actually, I texted Tom Emmer that day when he was with President Trump, said thank you for supporting President Trump on that bill.
Daniel Betts. I'm a 6-time Trump supporter, and you can check the FEC records that I donated to him when he came down the escalator in 2015. I love President Trump, but I don't like legislating in these omnibus bills. We need to put legislators on the record on individual issues. We need Congress to start actually legislating again. The administrative state has gotten out of control. Congress has abdicated so much of their authority to them, and they've gotten comfortable with doing one bill a year. And the problem with that is that allows bad actors, bad legislators, to hide behind things and say, well, you needed that tax break that Kyle talked about. And so I had to vote for it. And we had to vote for all these other things, all this pork, this, I wish Houston had the space shuttle down there. I think they should have got their act together the first time and done the application process right. I don't think we should have spent in the big beautiful bill $500 million in taxpayer dollars to get it there. And when you have these omnibus bills, you never force Congress to do their job. And it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult to say no to President Trump if it comes to something like that. But I would like to see a speaker, whether it's Speaker Johnson or another one, that actually gets back to the business of legislating. And that's what I support. Thank you, Daniel Betts.
Sorry, my hair got stuck in the chair. Ladies and gentlemen, we have continued to send people to Washington, D.C. that was the wrong tool for the job. Why do you think all of us loved that commercial that came out where they had all the firefighters in Congress? Y'all remember that? There's a credit card company, and they said, okay, pass the budget, check. Balance the budget, check. Fund the military, check. It is quite simple. And we've got a real estate guy that is used to calling balls and strikes and making a decision, not as a switch hitter, but as someone that has a goal, has a vision. You see, let's really answer the question that they're really asking. Thomas Massey, I believe, had a principled approach in the way that he was not agreeing with the big beautiful bill. I would have supported President Trump in the big beautiful bill, and I would have found a way for us to get it done in one step and not 2 steps. You see, the continuing resolutions that we had, it It was because you had all of the lobbyists in DC controlling all of the members of Congress. Why? Because most of them, all they know how to do is follow. Look at my background, check out my website, look at who's endorsed me. Folks, you don't wake up one day and determine you're going to be a leader. You either are or you're not. And you're either a good leader or a bad leader. So when we move our country forward, we have to have people that have a vision, people that actually have enemies. It might show you they've actually done something. So, Weston Martinez, Weston for Texas, we are doing a great job, and the best is yet to come. So I'm excited about what the president's done.
Thanks, Weston. I would have voted for the big beautiful bill. I'm kind of with Chip on this one. I don't think anybody knows a bigger debt hawk in Washington than Chip Roy, right? I mean, he's fought for us on every battlefield to reduce the debt. But there was a reason why he voted for it. It was because the president needed a victory at that time, but also because he talked to the president and knows what the president is doing. There's other things that we can do to reduce this debt. There's a thing that the president was working on, a national sovereign wealth fund, which goes back to the assets that I was talking about. As a bond trader, a guy who spent his life in the debt markets, what do you do when you are a company that's over-levered or a country that's over-levered? You take advantage of your assets. Either you sell them down and you reduce the debt with that, or you get more of a return out of your assets. As I said before, we get about a 4% return on our assets. Some of the private equity firms that we actually lend our money to are making 50, 60%. Why can't we get some additional upside and sharing in some of those profits? That's what the president is talking about doing. Sharing in those profits, using the proceeds from those profits to start paying down the debt. So yeah, it stinks. That stinks that we only cut $1.5 trillion over the next 10 years. It's embarrassing, actually, but I would have voted for it to work on these other projects that the president is working on. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Trey Trainer. I absolutely would have voted for the big beautiful bill, and I would have supported it for two reasons. One, largest tax cut that the American taxpayer has seen. Number two, there's $11 billion of your money in that bill. That is the money that the state of Texas has spent to defend the southern border when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were in office. And we had to spend that money. So you've already spent that money, and the rest of America benefited from it, and you need to get your money back. And more importantly, the big beautiful bill has that money in there, but there's no direction for the Treasury Department to write a check to the state of Texas. We don't know when it's coming. We don't know if it's coming in one lump sum. We don't know what's happening with it. So somebody's got to go to Washington, D.C. and say, hey, my people back home are owed $11 billion. When does the check get written? And somebody needs to move forward and go over to the Treasury Department and say, hey, let's take care of the issue. So absolutely I would have voted for it because it means money in your pockets because you've already spent it.
I must say, I agree with Bettis. He's right. We need to hold our legislators accountable. This cannot continue. Sure, you gave me some money back, maybe, I don't know. But you know what? They spent way more than they took in. And our deficit is going to ruin this country. And there's so much pork underneath. I was so glad when they fired so many federal workers. That was just a tiny drop in the bucket. We have so many legislators that are being governed by the lobbyists, and we need to change it. We need to have individual bills that force people to take a stand on this issue because it is huge. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the question, Zeke Enriquez. So, I wake up in the morning and I turn this little guy on, and this is one of Thomas Massey's debt badges, and it'll almost make you physically sick watching those numbers climb higher and higher. So, the debt is very important. I pay attention to it, and it's not just for me, it's for your kids, their kids, and our future generations. America can't sustain itself with this level of debt. Do I understand why Chip Roy and the others voted for the big beautiful bill? Yes. Take your wins where you can get it. Would I have done it? No. I would have made everybody, like Peggy just said, you gotta see what you're voting for. Put single subject bills up. Thomas Massey would not be the no congressman if you put up single subject bills that make sense, one page, in and out, and your constituents see how you voted, understand how you voted, and you have to come back home and answer them. Thank you.
Jason Cahill. My third week into my candidacy, mid-October, I actually was asked this very same question at the White House by Trump's team, and I was also asked the same question by Speaker Mike Johnson's office when I was up in there interviewing with them. And they said, what is your one big problem? What is your problem with the leadership? And I said, my problem with the leadership, and I said it directly to them, was the $1.8 trillion of debt that you guys keep pushing in your big beautiful deal. My team, on my time, they dropped their heads, and he said it. And on the other side, they all shook their heads. We all know it's an issue. Now this is where we get into solutions and people that can actually fix things. As a CEO, I balanced that $1.8 trillion debt in 48 hours. I have it on my notepad. I'm happy to go through it with each and every one of you. It's easy to complain about it, but getting the solution to get us there, and that was exactly what I said to the President's office and Speaker Johnson's office. We didn't get here overnight. We've been going through deficit after deficit, start of the global war on terrorism. We're at $38 trillion in debt. We're not gonna do it overnight. But my solution was we can start with beginning the balanced budget and a deficit. On the next big beautiful bill, we can go to 1.2 trillion. On a more bigger beautiful bill, we can get it down to a billion, a couple billion, 100 billion, 91 billion, and start the trajectory down. It's not gonna happen overnight. You have to be very realistic, but you have to have people that have those solutions. I have those solutions, and I'm happy to talk to you about. Jason Cahill.
Okay, I'm gonna combine two questions, and then we're gonna be done, because I know we're going a long time. The candidates will be here. If I did not get to your question, I've tried my best to combine them. Feel free to go to that candidate and ask them your question. Okay. Two-part question, candidates. Basically, how would you compare yourself to Chip Roy, Congressman Roy? Would you lead as him or differently? And put into that how you feel about Christian values in the political spectrum. Mr. Rojas.
I'm not in this to make friends. When I was at Microsoft or any of the other companies I worked at, I was often the lone dissenter on why are we doing it this way? Rather than just rubber stamp something, you need to ask questions. And if they can't have those questions answered, we need to drill down into it. So I've loved how Chip Roy has been a firebrand. In my day-to-day experience working in the firearm industry, anytime I have an issue with the ATF, there's either a phone call or an email I shot, and my issue's solved within probably 48 hours, because Chip's office is really great about dealing with that. Christian values, born and raised Christian, married, one daughter. Even when I was in high school, I was almost fired from my job because I took a stand and said, I'm not gonna work on Sundays because it's important for me to be with my family, be in the youth group, and do the different things that we had at my church. And that's something that I hold to this day. I've tried to avoid campaigning on Sundays. So far I've been good at it, but we'll see as we get closer towards the election. I might have to break that a little bit. Thank you.
I'll start with the second question first. I started my speech about saying I'm a God-fearing man. It's my moral compass. It causes for me what it is. It's one of the 5 things in life that changed me to my core, was my religious belief. and belief in God and freedom and love of country. So absolutely agree with that. Chip Roy has been a good friend. I've known him for years. When I ran for Congress in 22, he endorsed me, supported me, did everything to support the stances that I stood on, which was America first, and taking the fight to the people. And that's what Chip Roy was. He was a fighter. He fought for what he believed in. I remember texting him when he was fighting against the one big, beautiful bill and got summoned by the White House to go speak to President Trump. What are you doing? And it's interesting listening to him talk about his rationale and the things that decisions he makes. He's a fighter. There's no way around it. And I hope all of them here, and I'll say it publicly, support him for Attorney General. I know Aaron, I know many of the people in the race, but Chip Roy has my vote, my support, and my unequivocally endorsement for Attorney General because he is a fighter for that. Did that for Texas 21, and I think we'll do that for the state of Texas. Again, so my moral compass is my God, love of God, and belief that we're all created equal, and the Constitution protects those values and rights. So, thank you, Kyle Sinclair for Congress.
Thanks, Kyle. Daniel Betts. I really like Chip Roy a lot. I think that he has done amazing things, especially with the bully pulpit for conservative values, and I intend to follow in his footsteps. I'm a trial attorney myself, which means that I am a fighter in the courtroom. But first, before that, I've been doing this for 15 years now, and I've handled over 4,000 cases, and I've tried over 50 jury trials to verdict as a first chair. But that means that I've negotiated a heck of a lot more cases that didn't go to trial. And I get big wins for my clients, and you have to do that with relationships. And the way that I would juxtapose myself with Chip Roy is to say, Chip too often burns bridges that haven't been built. And we need to build those bridges so that we can get his legislative priorities across the line. I can't point to a single one of his priorities that I don't want to see when I am your next representative make reality. From pausing immigration to stopping stock trading in Congress, all of those. But the reality is that we're going to need to do that with Democrat votes. And in order to do that with Democrat votes, we have to have those relationships. And to my Christianity and how I'm going to do that, I'm going to take a page out of my evangelism and my prayer life. And there's a thing that I've learned, that people don't care what you think until they think that you care. And so we have to do, it's the way I do my prayers. I do adoration, contrition, thankfulness, and supplication. ACTS. And that means I love you, thank you, I'm sorry, and please forgive me. And one of the reasons that I win so many jury trials is I do weird things like that. I say that to my juries before they start. It's a strange thing to say I love you to a group of strangers, and I love y'all. And I intend to go and have relationships with people that I'm going to disagree vehemently with, but people who are fellow Americans of mine, Democrats. And I intend to form those relationships so that I won't compromise for us, but that I will negotiate hard on your behalf. Thank you.
Weston Martinez. Jesus Christ was the biggest political figure in the history of the world. You see, everything that I do is through biblical and constitutional apologetics. When Rick Green was running for Supreme Court Justice a long, long time ago, why did I support him? Because he was a constitutional guy that loved the Constitution and loved the Bible. Why have I been volunteering and supporting Turning Point USA and been one of their Turning Point USA faith pastors for years? Why? Because I know biblical and constitutional apologetics is where the war is going to be won. You see, ladies and gentlemen, we have a political problem in our society. All these things that we've talked about today, they're political problems. And they require a biblical solution. Every single one of these problems we've talked about, you can go to Proverbs or Revelations or Genesis or Psalms, and you can find a solution that fits anybody. Whether you're Protestant, Catholic, it doesn't matter. Those solutions are in there. But we have people that they don't care if you're a Catholic, a Protestant, Episcopalian, a Lutheran. They want to cut your throat right where you're at because they want jihad on every single one of us. You see, it is a spiritual war that we are fighting. And I'm sure tomorrow, one of these other candidates will copy me like they do on some of the other things. I'm the only ordained pastor in this race. I'm sure tomorrow there'll be 3 of them. Probably be the 4 or 5 that don't live in the district, so they can't vote for themselves anyway unless they commit voter fraud. But we have an opportunity to move our country forward. We have an opportunity to save our country. And it is through those lenses that I make my decisions before today, and it's those lenses that I will use to make my decisions when I'm fighting for our families in Congress. You see, I'm one of us. I'm not an outsider that's trying to come in here and just represent you. I'm actually a representative from within. WestonForTexas.com.
Again. So, Jesus is perfect. He's the only perfect entity out there. I try to live my life through Jesus. What I often say to myself, what would Jesus do? I know it sounds a little funny, but you know, I never can be perfect, but I think it's really a nice thing in life to try to go as far as you can towards that. And when you fail, you own up to it and ask for forgiveness. So that's how I kind of look at this. When I get angry at any of you, any of my competitors on anything, or when somebody says something nasty on social media, I think about that. But as far as Chip Roy goes, I'm a huge supporter of Chip. I don't agree with him on everything. I love his fight. I love the fact that I trust him when he's in Washington. I trust the fact that he stands on his values and what he's going to do what he thinks is best for me. Where I differ than Chip and what I think I bring extra to this race is I'm not an attorney. Don't pretend to be one. We have a fiscal crisis in our country. And I think when you have a fiscal crisis in your country, you're supposed to send more people to Washington with business experience, with fiscal experience. I don't think we need more lawyers in Washington, D.C. to fix these problems. I don't think when you get sick, you call a doctor. You don't call a lawyer. You know, when you have a car that breaks down, you call a mechanic, right? When you have a fiscal situation, you call a finance guy. So that's where I am different than Chip, but I have that same fight and energy in me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. It's a great question. I agree with Chip on almost everything. The only thing that I ever actually made a call to Chip and said, hey, I think you're wrong, was in the 2020 election. 2020 election was stolen by some people in Venezuela, stolen all over the country, and I thought that Chip should have stood up and fought more in that particular election. So, in that particular sense, is probably the one place that I disagree with him. I mentioned earlier that our Constitution and our Republic presupposes a Christian moral people. That means that we have to put our Christianity first in everything that we do. The gospel calls us to go out and be in the world, not of the world. And so that is what we are called to do. And so that's why I stand up and offer myself up for public service, because I think it's important. St. Francis of Assisi told us that we should preach the gospel and, if necessary, use words. That means we have to go out and we have to do the work of the gospel. And for me, serving in public service is that. It's an example that I give to my children. It's an example of my faith. And so for me, it's particularly important.
I got baptized when I was 8 years old. Came across my baptismal certificate fairly recently. And Christianity is a center part of who I am. And to be honest, I'm a bit confused. Because in my Christianity, Jesus reached out to the least of those. He reached out to the prostitutes. He reached out to the Samaritans. He reached out to those who were different. And he said, love your neighbor as yourself. But do you know what else I think? I think politics is about economics. It's about specific things. It's about having good police forces. It's about having an economy that works for all of us. Not giving money away, but having something that works. And that's my politics. And Jesus said, and I am in favor of putting the 10 Commandments in the schools. And I think we need to more teach morality in our schools. We need to teach kids to be honest, to talk to each other. And that's who I am as a politician. I am who I am as a Christian. I believe that God protects us, but we need to protect ourselves. I think Chip Roy did a good job, and I was proud of him for standing up for what he believed in, and most of that was exactly what I believe in as well. And I can tell you, if I'm elected, I will stand up for you, I will listen to you, and I will vote for you and what you think is right. My name is Peggy McCormick Wardlaw. Thank you so much, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak.
Thank you for the questions, Zeke Enriquez. So on the first one, what do I think of Chip Roy and the job he did? There's only two areas where I disagreed with Chip Roy. One of those is January 6th, his take on that. And the second would be when he dropped the F word on MAGA. Only two places. Other than that, if you're looking at Chip, you're looking at me, it's like looking in the mirror. I'm just a little more tan and have a little more hair than he does. So I would say I would stand, like I said earlier, shoulder to shoulder with Chip. I want to continue his legislation. Let's get it passed and on the president's desk. For Christianity, I grew up Catholic, later went to a Baptist church in Houston, Second Baptist with Dr. Ed Young, and finally found home at a Cowboy church. So I attend Ride the River Cowboy Fellowship in Bandera, been endorsed by several Cowboy pastors, and I serve on 4 different ministry teams right now. So religion is big for me, Christ is king, and that's some of the reason I'm here today. I'm a servant leader. I served in the Marine Corps, serve as a firefighter, and I do it all with love. Love for the people. Favorite verse is John 15:13. And I think that plays a big role in how I view public policy. And my favorite founder was George Washington, so I'll read you this from George. He said, "It is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey His will, to be grateful for His benefits, and humbly to implore His protection and favor." Couldn't have said it better.
Amen.
Thank you guys. Oh, and I am also an ordained minister. Thank y'all.
Jason Cahill. Ideologically and from a standpoint, I align with Chip 100%. 100%. My disagreement with Chip, it's not even a disagreement. It's about tactics and how you execute that. And I've learned about those tactics as an intelligence specialist in the Navy, as an intelligence contractor with the Central Intelligence Agency, DIA, and also as a CEO, navigating personalities, navigating egos. Your representative is 1/435th of 1/2 of 1/3 of the government. All right? You get effective leadership, effective representation by having somebody that can navigate that landscape. Your representative has to get 217 other people in their corner. And then they have to go over and get 50 other people, if not 60 other people in the Senate. You have to have somebody that can navigate those personalities. And that is my tactics. That is experience. CO, as intelligence contractor, I have that experience. Separation of church and state means the government cannot dictate or define or set a religion. It does not mean or imply that there is no religion in government. I take my Christian faith with me unapologetically, and I will hold myself to those same standards across the board. I'm Jason Cahill. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your kindness.
Thank you, candidates, very much. I appreciate your time and your honesty and kind of laying it out there for us. Again, if we didn't get to your very specific question, please hang around and ask the candidates yourself. We just kind of run out of time. I appreciate you so very much. Be safe. If there's a few of you that will help us put these chairs up and line them up against that back wall, I would greatly appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.